What is going on, YouTube? Lamont at large. Today we're at the Ellsworth Cemetery here in Salem, Ohio. So we're going to visit the final resting place of Ruth Allen Barber. One of the strangest ways I've ever read about how somebody died. We're going to visit her grave, and we're going to take a look at some other markers here at this cemetery. So without further ado, let's get right into the story. Now, this sad story actually starts with another sad story that preceded this one about 4 years ago. You would describe Homer Barber as a man of many hats, an average life lived. Nothing much that I can say other than for a time he was deputy sheriff. At the time of his death, he was the mayor of Beloit, Ohio, which is a very, very, very small town, about 15 miles from here. And through his life, he farmed his land that he owned, and he was quite good with his hands. His father taught him how to hold a hammer and use a saw when he was about 4 years of age. So nothing out of the ordinary in that situation. Now we're going to go to September 2nd, 1941. So Ruth and her husband Homer, they had went up to Cleveland to visit Ruth's cousin. Now, while they're up there, the doctor, he gets a sick call. That was back in the days when you would call your doctor when you were sick and they would make house calls. So they get into their vehicle and they start heading south on Route 14. So they make a left onto Route 18 and they're driving down the highway. Now, there's a crest of a hill approaching ahead. And as they're approaching the crest of the hill, unbeknownst to Homer, there's a horse that has wandered off of its owner's property right in the middle of the road. Homer doesn't see it. They smack right into the horse. Horse dies instantly, and sadly, Homer in that accident died as well. Now they have the funeral here at the cemetery where I'm currently at, and they bury Homer. Now, Ruth was very despondent. She could not get over the fact of how something so stupid, how a man could let his horse wander off of his property, not tying up the horse, not tying up the fence, what have you. And for the next 4 years, the last 4 years of her life, she would be just, people would say, just a very morose and sad woman. And this tragic accident claimed, her life, and some might even say claimed Ruth's life as well. On the morning of September 2nd, 1941, Ruth writes in her diary, she woke up, how she felt. She makes a log that she's going to come to this cemetery. Later on that day, she comes over here, right where I'm standing, and she's standing right here, staring at the man that she has loved for so many years. Final resting place, right here, Homer Barber. So as she's standing right here, she wants to be with him very, very badly. And she, in her mind, she makes a judgment call. This is the day that she's going to join her husband. We can all guess, try to guess anyways, exactly what happened. All I know is that Ruth laid right by her husband's grave. A marker that was right next to her husband's grave, she laid down in front of it, and it appears that the first time didn't work. but the second time did. She toppled over one of these stones here right onto her head, crushing her skull. I'm going to imagine that she did not die right away, but eventually she died right here where I'm standing. And this is her final resting place, is right next to her husband, Ruth Allen Barber. Now, she had gone missing from her home, which she lived in Salem, which is where I came from, about 10 miles or so down the highway right there. So they did not know where Ruth was because she had not shown up for church, and they were kind of worried about her because she was an active member of the church there in Salem. So they went to her home. She was nowhere to be found. She was missing for about a good day and a half. When somebody seen her journal, they looked into it and they seen that the last entry was that she was coming to visit Homer here at the cemetery. So everybody that was coming to look for her came, and they found her body right here with the marker on top of her head. And she had already, by that time, been dead. I can't tell if it was this marker or this one. And I can't even tell really where she laid. Now, if it was this one, I mean, this happened, 90 some odd years ago, 85, 90 years ago. So I'm going to imagine that these two graves right here are quite older than her and her husband's. So I'm going to guess it was one of these two, possibly right here. Again, all we know is that she was right next to the grave. However, it could have, even been something over here, except that all these markers right here, they're all very heavy. So I don't think she'd be able to push it. So imagine you being a woman, 60 years of age, you're not very strong. The way in which she did it was described in the article, not in great detail. So I can't figure out if she had some kind of a piece of a wood and she just kind of forced it over on her head. But they were able to ascertain at the scene that it appeared that she had tried at least once to do it, and it failed. So maybe there was some kind of an indentation in the ground where it didn't happen. But then the question remains, how would she have picked it back up to do it again? Was it a small stone that she just kind of picked up, like how you would bench press something and then just kind of drop it on your face? It crushed her cheek and her jaw. And, I'm going to guess she did not die right away. So that would be a very, very difficult and just gruesome way to take one's own life. So very strange indeed. I've heard of stories of people dying in cemeteries with stones falling on top of them. But I don't really recall one where somebody meant to do it. I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure if I find it, I'll do a story about it. But this is from what I remember anyways, because I read a lot of stories. This is the first one that I've ever heard of. So very, very rough way to go for sure. Rest in peace to both Ruth and Homer Barber. Just a weird story, really. Mrs. Marie Wilson Fenton, wife of Joshua Fenton, widely known woman of this place, died in St. Elizabeth's Hospital Sunday at 9:10 a.m. of complications following the birth of a child who also died a few hours later. Mrs. Fenton was born here in Ellsworth, August 31st, 1900, daughter of Jefferson and Eleanor Wilson. She spent her entire life here and was well known and highly respected. She was married 8 years ago to Joshua Fenton and was a member of the Methodist Church. Besides her husband, she leaves her parents, one daughter, Myrtle Marie Fenton, a sister, 4 brothers, all behind. Giving birth to a child back in those days was very dangerous. I think a lot of people don't realize that. Normally, births went according to plan, but sometimes, you know, when you see a lot of these old stones, here you see a lot of young women who died in their 20s and early 30s. A lot of times it's because of childbirth. Patrick was a truck driver. He hauled junk cars. So they would crush them, load them onto his flatbed, and he'd take them off to be melted down. On April 13th, 1976, he was getting on a highway and navigating a turn. His truck went off the road and crashed. They don't know exactly the cause of the accident, but that is how he died. He's buried alongside with his mother, Meredith. Got some very old monuments right here. Just kind of wanted to come really quick to check them out. Jeanette McCain died February 2nd, 1845, aged 24 years. J.A. McCain died January 22nd, 1818, aged 18 years. A lot of older stones in this section right over here. This one looks like it had a repair job and they did fantastic work on it. And hopefully that one will be next. Okay, I'm gonna split. I wanted to stay longer, but I just looked at the time. I didn't realize it is already 3 o'clock, so I gotta be at another cemetery before they close the gates because I want to get a picture of this statue because I'm gonna be doing a video on it and a video on the cemetery and other graves in that area. So I gotta hit the road. I'll catch up with you on the next video. Live but not live. Still alive by the grace of God. Lamont at large. See you on the next one. Peace out.